Hi everyone, hope you all are doing really well. So this is a part 2 which is for the Selenium interview question and answer. Selenium is also a very important topic, guys. You shouldn't be forgetting the Selenium and the API testing. So let's understand the Selenium thing, what all concept of Selenium. Selenium is also equally important as per as Java. So try practicing Selenium as well as start writing next path and the code of any of the any of the site. Try automating that will really help you in the real time interview, because sometimes interviewer can ask you to write the code for any of the site. So we're gonna do that maybe anytime in upcoming video. We're gonna automate any of the site and see what all, how we can create a page object model. Okay, so we're gonna do a small demo for a particular site. So if you want me to do that, please put a comment section. I am really disappointed because I don't see much of the comment section. I thought people are interested to know more about things. I hardly have one or two comments, so I request you guys, if you're watching this and if you want me to make anything, that's really motivate me. If you like it and share it, and maybe if you put a comment, that is the least expectation I have it. So yeah. Okay, anyways, how to handle alerts in Selenium. So there are alert pop-ups, right? So how you gonna handle that? So we'll be using a switch to dot alert, and there will be like alert dot accept, alert dot dismiss. So alert is a class, so you will be using alert class, and then and under that you will be using dot alert method, and then you will be using dot accept. That dot accept is a method, and dot dismiss is also a method under alert. So what is HTML unit driver? And there will be another question that how you will run your code in headless mode. So you will be using HTML unit driver. It's the fastest web driver, unlike the other drivers, since it is running it with the headless mode, because there is no GUI, so it will be a little more faster. So there are multiple questions associated with it. How do you handle hidden elements in, this is a question which has been asked, how do you handle hidden elements in Selenium web drivers? So you will be using Java executor script. So you will also be using contains keyword like hidden elements. And first of all, when it is not using, you'll be using Java executor class, and then for that you will be using the same element locator, and then you can point it out. So what is, or also you can have weights along with the hidden elements Java executor. Okay, what is page object model? You will be having a detailed learning of page object model. I have it in my page. Please refer to that to understand what is page object model, what is page factory. That is also, we're gonna have more details about it, and how you're gonna build a page object model, how you build your page classes. That's also we're gonna have how you create your page classes. That's also we'll be discussing into that video, so please refer that. So page object model is a design pattern in Selenium. Page object model helps to create a framework for maintaining Selenium scripts. In page object model, for each of the application, a class is created for having the web elements belonging to the page and methods handling the events in that page. So the test scripts are maintained in separate files, and the methods of the page object files are called test scripts file. Okay, so what are the advantages of POM? So advantages of POM are, using POM we can create an object repository, a set of web elements in a separate files along with the associated functions, so thereby keeping code clean. For any changes in the UI, only page objects files are required to be updated, leaving the files and other files, test files, unchanged. It makes code reusable and maintainable. What is page factory and page object model? There's a difference between page object model and the page factory. So and what that is the difference question is always there. So page object factory is an implementation of page object model that supports page object model. In Selenium, it provides find by annotations to find web elements, and page factory.init elements methods to initialize all the web elements defined with the find by annotations. Okay, these are the questions that are very important. Okay, this is how you're gonna write it. So you will be having a sample page class wherein you will be defining web driver find by id equals to search, web element this, find by name equals to search button, web element this thing. You can have public, private, whatever you wanted to have it. Now this dot driver, this is how you will initialize. You'll create a constructor, this dot driver equals to driver, page factory dot init elements driver comma this line is very important, wherein you define a constructor of a page element which is using web driver as in their input, and then we'll having a separate method public void search string searcher term search box dot send keys dot search button dot click. So this sample of code is very important. Understand it and write it. Okay. Then what is object repository? An object repository is a centralized locations of all the object or web elements of the test scripts. In Selenium, we can create object repository using page object model and page factory design pattern. So what is data-driven framework? A data-driven framework is a one in which the test data is put into the external files like CSV, Excel, etc. separated from the test logic written in the test scripts file. Test data drives the test cases, that is, that test method runs for each set of test data. So when you do it, right, there will be a lot of things, right? How you gonna read the data from the Excel? So you will be using hash map for that in your code. So that hash map works with key and value pair. So first of all, you will add your file. Okay. So for the adding your file, you will be using a file class. Under file class, you will be using after the file class, you will have upload your file into the code, and then based on input stream, you will have your file will convert into the your file will be added as an input stream. You'll be also using input stream class, and then you will be using accessive workbook to convert your file into the workbook, accessive workbook. And then there is a get sheet or get row method is there to get the rows and get the sheets based on the keys we're gonna pass it. So it's gonna read the value based on the key. So how you're gonna read the value? You'll be using a hash map in your test classes, and then you will pass the key value and it will get test data, like you will, if you have a hash map, test data reference variable, and then test data dot get data, get row, whatever you wanted to get it, you can get it. Okay, that's just upper view. That's how you should answer. You should have more learning of how the data driven happen, everything happens. So yeah. What is a keyword driven framework? A keyword driven framework is one in which actions are associated with the keywords and kept in external files. Example, actions of launching a browser will be associated with the keyword launch browser actions. To write a text box with keyword, write in text box web element text to write, etc. The code to pattern the action based on keywords specified in the external file is implemented in the framework itself. What is hybrid framework? Hybrid framework is a combination of one or more framework. Normally, it is associated with the combination of data-driven and the keyword-driven frameworks, where both the test data and the test actions are kept in external files in the form of table. That keyword-driven, right? You will be marking your action is always there. Like for example, your data is there. You pass the data, and the action is also reading it from the Excel. Now, what is Selenium Grid? Selenium Grid is a tool that helps in distributing the running of the test script across different machines. They have different virtual machines having a different browser versions, platforms, etc. in parallel. In Selenium Grid, there's a hub. There's a central server managing all the distributed machines known as nodes. So the central one is the hub, and the left and the different one in like it is connecting with different of the nodes. So different virtual machines are called nodes. What are some advantages of Selenium Grid? It allows running the test cases in parallel, thereby saving test execution time. Multi-browser testing is possible using Selenium Grid by running the test on machines having different browsers. And it allows multi-platform testing by configuring nodes having different operating system. And then what is hub in Selenium Grid? A hub is a server or a central point in a Selenium Grid that allows the control the executions of the different machines. What is node in the Selenium Grid? Nodes are the machines which are attached to the Selenium Grid hub and have Selenium instances running their scripts. Unlike hub, there will be multiple nodes in the Selenium Grid. So in the nodes, what happens is there's a VM, right? And there was virtual machine. So there will be containers. In that containers, your applications are installed, like the application-based container. And for example, your application runs in browser, so the image of the container, like the image of the Chrome browser, has been created into the current container, and your code started running in that Chrome browser. Okay. So application, explain the line of code WebDriver driver equals to new of WebDriver. So this is also called runtime polymorphism, guys. So if you are explaining OOPS concepts where you have used runtime polymorphism or OOPS concept. So this is runtime polymorphism, whereas two things are very necessary. Is a relationship, that means it does have the superclass and the base class relationship. So Firefox driver is a class and WebDriver is an interface. So WebDriver is an interface and Firefox driver is a class. So WebDriver is a interface, okay, and then it is being implemented or it is being extended by Firefox driver class, okay. Extended class always extends, so extends by Firefox driver class. So there is WebDriver is a super class and Firefox driver class is a subclass, and that's when we are using, here it is runtime polymorphism, where an object is bound towards the functionality, okay. So it is bound towards the functionality of Firefox WebDriver. So WebDriver, what does it? It initialize the drivers, instances of the driver, okay. It's why we are using mainly WebDriver is used to, in this case we are using to create an instance of a Firefox driver class. Why we are using this? So why we are not using Firefox driver, that also can be used, but since if we have to use multiple browsers, so instead of writing it again and again, we'll write it once and use it. You have created the WebDriver instance one. Now you can open Firefox driver class, you can open Chrome, any classes, any browser can be used. So you don't have to write again and again. You don't have to initialize again and again. So that's how it is. So WebDriver is an interface. We are creating the object of a type WebDriver, instantiating an object of Firefox driver class. So that concept has to be understood. Okay. What is the purpose of creating a reference variable? So driver of type WebDriver, instead of directly creating a Firefox, that's what I've just explained. So when you're creating it, you have to create it multiple times for every browser. Okay. So again, increasing the line of code. So what is TestNG? TestNG, NG for the next generation. It is testing framework that can be integrated with Selenium or any other automation tool to provide a multiple capabilities like assertions, reporting, palette test execution, etc. So what are the advantages of TestNG? So TestNG provide different assertions that help in checking the expected and the actual results. It provides parallel executions of test method. We can define dependencies of one test method over other in TestNG. We can assign priority to the test method in Selenium. It allows grouping of test methods into test groups. It allows test driven using data provider annotations. It has inherent support for reporting. It has supports for parameterizing test cases using parameter annotation. There are many benefits of TestNG, and also the assertion sequence that is also has to be remembered. So what is the use of testng.xml file? Is used for configuring the whole test suite. In testng.xml file, we can create test suite, create test groups, mark tests for parlors, executions, add listeners, pass parameters to test scripts. Later, the testng.xml file can be used for triggering the test suite. How can we pass the parameters to test script using TestNG? You will be using parameters annotations. So parameter type in TestNG XML, we can pass the parameters into the test script. How can we pass the parameters to test script? So here you will be passing. So you will be using value or a name, parameter name and value. Value will be passing, and then that's how you're calling parameter A. If you're passing the key here, you will be reading the value of that one. Okay. How can we create a data-driven framework using TestNG? Using data provider, we can create a data-driven framework in which data is passed to the associated test method and multiple iterations of the test run for the different test data values passed from the data provider method. The method is associated with data provider annotations with 2D array of an object. So here it is creating, if you can see it here, here it is being created. Like I have used the data provider annotations. I'll be using name as an user. So string, I'll be using a string of 2D array. So 2D array will be like this, login data, string data, 2D array, Mercury, and you will be passing like that. Okay, Mercury 1, like whatever data you wanted to pass in the form of key and value pair, and then written data. That's how you'll be passing. Okay, TestNG listeners. What is the use of TestNG? What kind of TestNG listeners? TestNG provides us a different kind of listeners using which we can perform some actions in case an event has triggered. Usually TestNG listeners are used for configuring reports and logging. One of the most widely used listener is iTest listener interface and test listener adapter class. It has a method like test success or test failures or test script, etc. We need to implement this interface, creating a listener class of our own. So this is customized class. Okay, you can create your own. So this is how we will be having. This is very important class, guys. You see it, you try practicing it. One of the interviewer asked me to write this class. Okay, So what is the use of listener annotations in TestNG? We need to implement iTest listener interface by creating a listener class of our own. After using the listener annotations, we can use specify that for particular test class, and our customized listener class should be used. We need to implement iTest listener interface by creating a listener class of our own. After that, using a listener annotations, we can specify that particular test class, customized listener. So here I'll be using my listener, implement iTested listener. Okay, then you will be using a override because you will be overriding every time. So public void on test start itest result system dot out dot print test is started. Public void on test success itest result, it will again override it, right? System dot test is passed. So when you have the results, right, so based on the results, it is on test start, on test success. Based on the methods, you will be overriding same method names, same method, same parameter, okay, but different implementation. So implementation is different, so you're overriding it. So based on that, you will be overriding. So here also, like, you will be using it, assert dot fail, assert dot assert true, okay, login by email. That's how you will be using my listener class. Okay, how can one test method depend on other using TestNG? You will be using depends on method in parameter inside test annotation in TestNG, or making one test method run only after successful executions of the dependent method. So what if your this one, right, you have a depends on method, if it is dependent and this one is failed, then what you wanna do? If this one is failed, this one is not run, right? When this method depends on one method is like dependent on this method pre-test. If pre-test fail, the method which is dependent on, like for example, we have post-test, and post-test is dependent on pre-test. So pre-test fail, so post-test will also not run. So how you gonna make sure that even if pre-test fail, your post-test run? So you will be using always run tag. Okay, that's how I'm telling you that please listen to my video, because I'll be sharing most of the details which I have not mentioned into the slides. I just got remember. How can we set the priority of the test cases? So using the priority annotation, test annotation, we can define the priority of the test cases. The default priority of the test cases is an integer value 0. Okay, what are commonly used TestNG annotation? So test before method. I'm not explaining this one. It is like before class, before suite, before class, before test, before method, then at the rate test, then after method, after test, after class, and after suite. That is how the sequence is. So better you learn out the sequence. Okay, what are the common assertions provided by TestNG? Assert dot equals, assert not equals, assert false, assert true, assert not equals, fail, true. How can we run the test cases in parallel using TestNG? So you will be using parallel. You can have method, test, classes, whatever you wanted to run. You will be adding this one into testng.xml file and your thread count. So here you will be using, I think, here you will be using equals, right, verify, and what else we have it here? Okay, so here you will be using, right, suite name, parallel testing, parallel test run, and thread count equals to 5. So I think this is how you will be putting it in your testng.xml. Name an API used for reading and writing data to Excel file. We'll be using Apache POI for that, and Java Excel APIs can be used for reading, writing, and updating Excel. Name an API used for login in Java. Log4j is an open source API widely used for login in Java. It supports multi levels of login like all, debug, info, warn, error, trace, fatal. What is the use of login in automation? Login helps in debugging the test when required, and also provide a storage of test runtime behavior. What is invocation count? This is very important question. It's been asked me in IBM. So the TestNG attributes that number of times the test method should be invoked or executed before the execution of other. So you will be having test at the rate invocation count equals to 5. How can we run a test method multiple times in a loop without using anything? You will be using invocation count. So these are the manipulations of the question. Same questions can be asked in multiple manners. Okay. How to fail a TestNG test if it doesn't get executed within a specified time? We can use timeout attributes of at the rate destination. The value assigned to this timeout attribute will act as an upper bound. If a test does not get executed with this time, frame, then it will be fail with timeout exception. So you can have your own customized timeout exception, throw interrupted, thread dot sleep, this. Okay. How can we skip a test case conditionally? Using skip exceptions, we can conditionally say, this is called skip exceptions. This is, we can conditionally skip a test case on throwing skip exceptions that on the test method marked as a script as it is execution report, and any statement after throwing the exceptions will not be get executed. Test method, if condition to be checked for skipping test, throw new skip exceptions. That's all. How can we show a test method runs even after test methods or a group on which it depends fail or get it? It's using always run attribute. Okay, which I've already explained it. Now, how to set the size of the browser window using Selenium? So driver.manage.window.maximize we will put, right? So you can also have a dimension class wherein you can put the dimensions, and you can use get size method to put the size of that. Can we enter a text without using send keys? You will also use executor for that. Okay, this question is also being asked. Okay, how you do it? Explain how will you log in into any site if it is showing any authentication pop-up for username and password. Since there will be a pop-up for login, we need to use the explicit command and verify if the alert is actually present. Only if the alert is present, we need to pass the username and password credentials. So we'll be using alert class for that, and then you will be using authenticate using method, and then you can pass your username and password. Explain what is group test in TestNG. In TestNG, method can be categorized into groups. When a particular group is being executed, all the methods in that group will be executed. We can execute a group by parameterizing its name in group attribute of @test annotation. Group equals to how you do the grouping thing. So group is also very important. How you group your test case. Group equals to sanity, group equals to sanity, smoke, regression, whatever you have to do it, you can group categorize that. So how do you run failed test cases? By using testng.failed.xml. Okay, in testng. What is stale element exceptions, how you handle it? So this is also important, that what all exceptions you have handled. So if you said about stale element, so that again question, the second question will be how you have handled it. So stale means old, decayed, and no longer refreshed. So stale elements means old element or no longer available element. So assume that there is an element that is found on a web page, referenced as a web element in a web driver. So if the DOM changes, the web element goes stale. So if we try to interact with an element which is stale, then stale element exceptions are thrown. So when happens to you, you need to refresh your references or find the element again. Okay. So what all you different text path you will be using: contained, using or and using start with function, text. So practice it by writing all those text paths. Okay. What will happen in the background when execute execute new Firefox driver? Firefox binary will be triggered. Firefox browser will open with the default options, and Firefox object is created. Okay. So after that I'll be having a second class. So this is the last slide, guys. So what is the difference between below statement 5? What is the below? Okay, that is what we have already done. And how do you handle inner frames and the adjusted frames? So switch to frame 1, switch to frame 2, work on the element, and switch to default contain. So using switch to frames, move to the control. So you have to see your DOM where frame started. So you can use the index of the frame, or you can also use the name of a frame to switch to. So how do you handle inner frames and the adjacent frames? That we have already done it. How to click an element which is not visible using a Selenium WebDriver? So you will be using Java executor scripts. Okay. So how you gonna use it? This is, you can create a Java executor script object, and then based on with the help of object you can use execute script and then use it. So difference between verify and the assert. So assert command check if the given condition is true or false. If the condition is true, the program control will execute the next phase of the testing, and if the condition is false, the execution will stop and nothing will be executed. Then we also have a verify command. Also check if the given condition is true or false. It doesn't halts the program execution, that is any failure during verifications would not stop the execution, and all the test phases will be executed. What is the use of find by annotations? Find by is used to identify element in the page factory approach. So do you use thread.sleep? You should say no, we will be rarely use, because that is not a good practice to use, because it also throws an exception. So we don't want the programs with exceptions. What are the different pop-ups that you handle in your project? Alert pop-ups, JavaScript pop-up, Ajax pop-up, browser pop-ups, browser profile, robot class, auto IT, like that, browser profiles. So that kind of pop-up we have used it. So I think that's all from my end, guys. If you still want more questions, since there are more questions now, so I want more of you guys to watch these videos and comment down, then I'll come up with another video. Till then, I think there are a lot of Selenium questions, and Selenium is also a very important topic. So you're practicing Java, don't forget Selenium. Okay, so Selenium is also a very important topic. So if you know 50% of the Java and you know 100% of the Selenium, you will definitely get the job. So Selenium is quite easy, and you're gonna work with Selenium. You should be knowing all this aspect of the Seleniums. So that's all, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you, and we'll meet soon in the next video. Bye bye, guys.